Well, we're back, everyone, doing another double feature. It's been a great weekend for movies. For me in particular, I got to see some advanced screenings of a couple films I'm very excited to talk about. I'll talk about them probably in the coming weeks. But there was two that came out I can't talk about. Not FNAF. I haven't seen it yet. At the time of this recording, I've yet to see Five Nights at Freddy's. I don't know if I'm going to see it. I don't really care anymore. I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's fine. You do your thing. But there's two movies I do want to talk about, kind of because I am one of those awards guys. I love movies that are from auteur directors and have all that awards buzz. Both of these movies we're going to talk about, I could see some Oscar contention for them, where it's like, yes, one in particular, the first one we're going to talk about, there's going to be some Oscars had. Not sure about the Fincher one, but that's okay. We're talking Anatomy of a Fall and The Killer, two movies that have been getting very good reviews recently. A lot of critics have been talking these up a lot. A lot of critics I trust have been talking these up a lot. And of course it happens with Anatomy of a Fall because this was the Palme D'or winner this year. This one won Best Picture at Cannes. I'm like, yeah, that's great. What do you got for me? I've been trying to find a screening of this one for so long. I was finally able to get into a screening, and it was really magical. Anatomy of a Fall is a very interesting movie. It's so perfectly choreographed and written and executed that every single scene is just this brilliant piece of storytelling. You're watching this woman deal with this trauma and how that affects her life and just the justice system of France, and it's kind of beautiful in that way. This is a courtroom drama through and through. It kind of takes place in a couple of main events. You're witnessing this wife who loses her husband. He falls out of a high place in their house, and that leads you to maybe think, oh, did she do something? She was the last one to see him. She was alone in the house with him. She didn't report the death right away. Did she have something to do with this? Suddenly it stops being like, oh, did he commit suicide or was this an accident? And did he get pushed? Because it's an entire movie. And again, this might not be for everybody, and I understand that, but this is an entire movie about the justice system being put to work to see if we can actually figure out the events that happened to this man and what led him to dying. Is in the aspects of okay, we have to investigate the scenery, we have to investigate the people that were involved in this, literally do tests with dummies to see if the way the body was found, what wouldn't happen from where he supposedly fell or where he'd have to fall from to get that. We have to do testimonies against the family, against the wife. It's pretty cool. Half of this movie is just we're looking at this house and trying to figure out how any of this happened. And it's a beautiful house, it's a nice location we're shooting in. We have beautiful roads and streets and everything's covered in snow. And it looks very fun and cool. And because of that, there's this aesthetic that everything could kind of wash away at a moment's notice. You don't really know what would happen or what wouldn't happen. And then the other half of this movie, it's about 2.5 hours. The other half is, let's go to the courtroom and just have long sequences where we just do a full-on courtroom sequence. It drags on for a while, the courtroom stuff happens a year after the actual event, because that's just how law works and stuff. It's really slow and methodical and doesn't really yield the result you're hoping for some of the time. But it's just really intense and such a tight script. My goodness, this script is so interesting. It's so intricate and detailed, where not only does it come across as this naturalistic way that everybody is speaking and reacting and saying, I guess a large part of that does come from the actors too, we'll get to that in a minute. It's just so detailed where every single possible thing that you would investigate when this happens is researched. How did he fall? Where did he fall? Why did he fall? What was in the happening when he fell? All of that is being talked about. All of that is being explored. And it's so unique and so well done. A beautiful thing. Now, Justine Triet is not a director I know a lot about. The name doesn't ring that many things in my head, but this is such a perfectly executed film that I could definitely see a lot of awards coming her way. And I can just picture what her career could look like, because it's a beautiful landscapes, beautiful shots where we frame some things. It's so gorgeous. It's all natural. The lighting is so gorgeous in it too. She has an eye for this kind of thing. And definitely from the female perspective, just helps you navigate the story better, because then it becomes this journey of this woman trapped in this system where the world's against her and she's losing favor with everybody in her life. And that's such a unique experience to put somebody into that you're not really expecting anything from it. Now, Sandra Hüller, if that's how you say her name, I'm not too sure. Not an actress I'm too familiar with. Again, this one came to me because it's the Palme D'Or winner. I'm like, I gotta see what's that's all about. She is phenomenal. There are so many different emotions and feelings ranging through her head at any given moment that you don't really know what she's thinking half the time. You don't know what's really being said here, and the ambiguity of her entire performance lends itself to just make you go, did she do something she's not saying? Like, there's one scene towards the end where we're kind of like listening to like this audio recording, and then we actually like show that scene happening. You're watching that sequence and you're like, there is so much in this that you could spend a long time delving into and thinking about how is any of this affecting her? What did she really do? Now, maybe there's a clear answer that the director and the actor are saying as to like what the events transpired. Was this real? Was it faked? What actually happened? But there is like an ambiguity that to me feels the most authentic, where she did do it, she didn't do it. That's not really the point. The point is she wants to get her son out of this without him being harmed or hurt or being broken by this thing. And that's really cool. And the young actor playing her son gets a lot to do. He has some really cool moments and a lot of just like, this is a kid suddenly having to grow up and hear the things he doesn't want to hear. That's a lot to process. That's a lot for any kid to process, and he handles it well. I do want to shout out two of my favorite performances in this movie because there's a lot of good stuff in here. Swan Arlund, is that how you say his name? He plays the lawyer that is defending Sandra's character. Insane. Like that is a supporting performance that could have just been nothing, but I think it's just like the weird like reptilian like nature to his appearance that just makes him like, you trust this guy. He seems like a good guy. He's kind of a little too like, swaggalicious for like this to fully think he's weird. You kind of buy him. You kind of like him. Certain moments of him towards the end are so interesting. Cool guy. I liked him. Very interesting. But the best performance in the movie by far, and one of my favorite performances in a long time, the dog Snoop. Snoop the dog. Not Snoop Dogg. The dog named Snoop. Do you get the joke? Well, there's like a whole thing about like 90s rappers being very popular in this guy's life. This dog is doing some incredible work. This dog has stuff going on, and he learns things, and he's a key part of the story, and it's a beautiful dog, and it's really fun to see what that dog does. Like, it's so interesting how they use the dog, because it feels like a part of the family. It feels like a real character, and that's like a really interesting thing to explore. It's cool. I really dug that. This is a good movie, and it's just investigating one particular thing and seeing if we're going to get the right resolution for it. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we do. But in the end, it's not the point, is it? It's about the justice system working or not working, or who knows. But so interesting of a film. A very perfect, captivating piece. So, Anatomy of a Fall, I am going to give an 8 out of 10. Now let's switch gears for a minute, because this is another film I was kind of hesitant to watch. It's David Fincher's The Killer. This is a movie that I didn't really think anything of it. I'm not a big Fincher guy. A lot of his stuff that I do like is the more esoteric, kind of like The Social Network, which isn't, I guess, esoteric, but it's just more like, this is about what we're doing now and kind of how scary it is. So I've never been like a huge fan of his work. But I'm always curious to see like what he's thinking, because he's definitely a filmmaker with a mind. And he's an auteur that still gets stuff made that an auteur does. So I was lucky enough to get a screening of this movie. And the audience I went with was primarily film bros, which I get it. You want to see the Fight Club Zodiac Gone Girl guy do something. I get that. And when I'm watching this film, I'm just starting to realize, oh, I think I know what you're going through, dude. This was the biggest surprise of the year to me. Every film I've seen this year, I think The Killer surprised me the most, because I really feel the fundamental pushback of a director making something like this movie. I've talked about this in other places, but before we get into like the actual review, I want to hearken this entire movie and this concept to another creator that I'm a fan of, and that is Grant Morrison. I walked out of The Killer thinking that this was David Fincher's story the same way Final Crisis was to Grant Morrison, where you feel the representation of people in the movie represent things in the real world that this creator is working against. It's both a love letter to the thing they like making while also talking about the problems of making it today. It's from the pushback of a studio or a comic book publisher telling you to make the classic thing that you're known for, and you being like, I can't make that now. We shouldn't make that now. I'm going to show you why we shouldn't make that now, and if I try to, you might not understand why I don't want to do that. That's what this was to me. You're watching David Fincher actively feel he has to make another Seven, make a Fight Club, where it's like, I don't want to do that. I'll do it for you, Netflix, because you're letting me make a movie, but I'm going to fundamentally show you why I don't want to do that now. Because you can't make a modern version of those movies, because it's so lame. This is not trying to be like a film, bro. Look at the intensity of the world. This entire movie is just about a hitman who's like, this job is so freaking easy. Everything is so kind of lame. I could do half my job with Amazon and Postmates. Like, you don't have to try anymore, and I don't have to try anymore as David Fincher. Like, it's just that easy, and I don't want to make a Fight Club anymore because it's lame. This feels like a guy who is so obviously talking about his experience as a director, where don't get attached to the project, don't fall in love with it. Oh shit, I fell in love with it, and the moment I fall in love with it is the moment it's pulled away from me and something bad happens. And you can experience that through the movie, because every time we cut to a new chapter, or every time we cut to like a new hit or a takedown or a target, we do the same thing. And this isn't really a spoiler, but I just want to bring it up because it's so interesting. We do like the same thing. We get a specific location, we get a specific car, we get a specific thing happening, and then we execute it the way that we're supposed to. We anticipate, we don't improvise. That's like a key thing that is said throughout the piece. And then the moment you're like, okay, everything's going right, everything's working fine, suddenly, boom, the studio comes in and messes it up, and suddenly the thing you cared about is taken away from you and it's broken and mangled up. It is both the case for the character in the movie doing the target and the mercenary stuff, and the case of David Fincher and a lot of his projects. It's very clearly him talking about making movies, and that's not a problem. David Fincher's one of the best guys making movies right now. Like, he just has a vision, he can execute it. He knows how to shoot on digital better than some of the guys. There's few other directors I think know digital like him. Rian Johnson is one of them. He really knows how to use those digital stuff. Soderbergh's another one of them. You get a couple of those people that just get it, you know? Bong Joon-ho, another one of those guys. They know how to do digital, and the colors and just the aesthetic, he nails that so perfectly. It's got this dark, edgy vibe. It's the Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor score. Two guys that know how to work with him. You combine that all together, you get something that's trying to be edgy like the 90s and 2000s stuff, by rebelling against that, by being so modern, talking about so many things that are happening today that's so lame. This assassin is not cool. He's checking his heartbeat. It's telling you, like, don't get attached to this guy. He's kind of lame and stiff and doesn't do anything interesting. It's David Fincher talking about himself in the form of a mercenary. And yes, it's based on a graphic novel, loosely. You know what I mean. It's so interesting the way he did this. And even if you just completely ignore all that stuff, and I'm sure there were some film bros in the audience with me that missed that stuff, where it's clearly the bad guy's Netflix here, you know? That's something not everyone's going to see. This is still really good. It's a really strong story about this guy who is so specific in his execution. The moment something goes wrong, he has to backtrack and figure out the entirety of what happened to him and how these things happen. Shot beautifully. The locations look fantastic. Michael Fassbender, again, he's not a guy that I've always like jumped to and been like, yes, finally, another Fassbender joint. He gets it. Like, he gets that this guy is stiff and stoic and hard to understand. He nails that well. He's very physical in a lot of ways. This is also a very silent film. It relies heavily on like the visual medium of film. So you're just seeing like, this is an important thing. Keep note of all these little things happening. But also when like the script does get really scripty, it's a really good script, you know? Like, even just the narration's really good. And I'm not going to say much about what Tilda Swinton does, but she has some really great stuff with her screen time. That's really fun. There's even some interesting fight sequences that are so disjointed and scary that you're like, this feels real. You're nailing it again, Fincher. I don't understand. But you being angry at somebody or yourself is really working for your career, because there is so much to say here that's so compelling. This is a really strong film. Every part of it works. the part of it making fun of itself and making fun of these types of films work. The part of it just being a basic Hitman story works really well too. This is really surprising. Like, I walked out of this movie thinking, I did not just enjoy that as much as I did I? Because it has like the veneer of being like, oh, we're doing another Zodiac. Look at us get like, ooh, look at us. We're doing like a Tyler Durden thing. And I don't like that. I've never liked that. Zodiac's a good movie, but the Fight Club of it all, I don't like. But walking away just feeling like you are mad at somebody and you are Grant Morrisoning all over this. And you are Grant Morrisoning all over this. Oh, that was really cool. It made me very happy. But The Killer's great. It's a strong movie, a strong outing from Fincher. And it's just going to get dumped on Netflix and nobody's going to talk about it. But there is so much to talk about in this piece. I'm barely scratching the surface just because it's not out yet. The time this video goes live for the public. It's insanity. It's really impressive. It's very cool. It's very cool. So, The Killer, I am going to give a 9 out of 10. Now, thank you all for watching this double feature. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.